Hi, boys and girls. It's Friday afternoon, and I am so ready to go outside and play in the garden and grill out and just enjoy my weekend. I love that I'm still able to connect with you guys. Um, I love what I do. I'm a teacher. I love it, but I'm telling you what, I'm not going to look at this computer this weekend. I'm going to be outside looking at bugs. So before I do that, I wanted to go ahead and wrap up our chapter from yesterday. If you recall, we didn't finish the chapter. There was a lot of suspense. Omri and Patrick were spared from Mr. Johnson because he was so shocked by what he saw. Goodness, my hair is standing up all over the place. And they allowed Omri to go back to class and Patrick. Omri had 2 periods of art. He took Little Bear and Boone to a corner of the room, and we found out that Boone had some amazing artistic talent. However, Omri used this to his advantage and pretended that he had drawn the sketches, and he was laughing so hard that he had to leave the classroom and go out onto the playground. And that's where we left off. So, here we go. The bell rang. School was over. It's almost over for us. Omri brought out the men and he held them up. Guys, he said, I enjoyed that. Thank you. Now we're going to the shop. Omri ran all the way to Yap's, and he got there before most other children had even got out of school. In 10 minutes, the place would be full of kids buying potato chips and sweets and toys and comic books. Just now, he had it to himself, and he had to make the most of the few minutes that he had. He went directly to the corner where the boxes of plastic figures were kept, and he stood with his back to the main counter. He was still holding Little Bear and Boone in his hand, and he put them down among the figures on the Cowboys and Indians shelf. He hadn't reckoned on Boone's sensitive nature, however. Holy catfish! Looking at all them dead bodies, he squealed, hiding his eyes. There must have been a massacre in here. Not dead, said Little Bear, scornfully. Plastic. He kicked a plastic cowboy aside. Too many, he said to Omri. You'll find women? I choose. You'll have to be quick, said Omri. He was already rummaging through the box, picking out the Indian women. There were very few. Of the 5 he found, denominator. 1 was clearly old, 1/5. 2 had babies tied to their backs, 2/5. And their babies were in parcels laced up like boots. You don't want one with a baby, I suppose. Little Bear gave him a look. No, I thought not, said Omri. Well, what about these? He stood the remaining 2 other figures on the edge of the table. Little Bear jumped down and he faced them. He looked carefully at one, then at the other. They both looked the same to Omri, except that one had on a yellow dress and the other one had on a blue dress. Each had a black pigtail and a headband with one single feather and moccasins on their feet. Little Bear looked up. His face showed furious disappointment. No good, he said. But there aren't any others. Many plastic. You look good. Find other. Omri rummaged frantically right to the bottom of the box. Kids were beginning to come into the shop. He had almost despaired when he saw her. She lay face down on the very bottom of the box, half hidden by 2 cowboys on top of horses. He pulled her out. She was the same as the others, apparently, except she had on a red dress. They obviously all came out of the same mold because they were all in the same position, as if they were walking. If the others were ugly, this one would be too. Without much hope, he set her before Little Bear. He stood staring at her. The shop was getting busy now. At any moment, someone would come in behind him, wanting to buy a plastic figure of their own. Well, said Omri impatiently. For another 5 seconds, Little Bear stared. Then, without speaking a word, he nodded his head. Omri didn't wait for him to change his mind. He scooped him and Boone back into his pocket, and picking up the approved figure, he made his way to the counter. Just this one, please, he said. Mr. Yap was looking at him. A very odd look. Are you sure you only want the one? He asked. Yes. Mr. Yap took the plastic figure, dropped it into the bag, and gave it back to Omri. 10 pence. Omri paid, and he left the shop. Suddenly, he felt a hand on his shoulder. He spun around. It was Mr. Yap. The look on his face was not odd at all, but red and angry. Think about that for a minute. Red and angry. He followed Omri out of the shop. He's red and angry. Now you can hand over the 2 that you stole. Omri stood aghast. I didn't steal any. Don't add lying to your faults, my lad. I watched you put them in your pockets. A cowboy and an Indian. Omri's mouth hung open. He thought he was going to be sick. I didn't, he tried to say, but no words came out. Turn out your pockets. They're mine, Omri said. A likely story. And I suppose you brought them out to help you choose this new one. Yes. Ha, 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 said Mr. Yap. Come on, stop playing around. I lose hundreds of pounds worth of stuff a year to you thieving kids. When I do catch one of you red-handed, I'm not likely to let it pass. I know your sort. If I let you go, you'll be boasting to your friends at school how easy it is to get away with it, and most likely back you'd come tomorrow for another pocketful of toys. Omri was fighting back tears. Quite a crowd had collected, much like the crowd in the art room, some of the same people even, but his feelings were no longer so pleasant. He wished he could just disappear. It's no good trying to get around me by crying, said Mr. Yap. Give them back right now, or I'll call the police. All at once, Patrick was right beside him. They're his, he said. I know they're his because he showed them to me at school today. A cowboy with a white hat and an Indian in a chief's headdress. He told me he was coming to buy a new one. Omri would never steal. Mr. Yap let go of Omri and he looked at Patrick. He knew Patrick quite well because it happened that Patrick's brother had once been his paper boy. Will you vouch for him? Of course I will, said Patrick. I'm telling you, I saw both of them this afternoon. But still the shopkeeper wasn't absolutely convinced. Let's see if they fit your description. Lost my place. Omri, who had been staring at Patrick as at some miraculous deliverer, felt his stomach drop into his shoes once more. But then he had an idea. He reached both hands into his pockets. Then he held out one hand slowly, still closed, and everyone looked at it, though it was actually empty. The other hand he lifted to his mouth, as if to stifle a cough, and he whispered into it, Lie still. Don't move. Lie still. Then he put both hands before him, and he opened them. The men played along beautifully. There they lay, side by side, stiff and stark, and like lifeless plastic figures as could possibly be. In any case, Omri was taking no chances. He gave Mr. Yap just long enough to see that they were dressed like Patrick had said before he closed his fingers again. Mr. Yap grunted. Those aren't for my shop anyhow, he said. All my Indian chiefs are sitting down, and that sort of cowboy is always on a horse. Well, I'm sorry, lad. You'll have to excuse me, but you must admit it did look very suspicious. Omri managed a smile. The crowd was melting away. Mr. Yap shuffled back into the shop. Omri and Patrick were left alone on the sidewalk. Thanks, said Omri. It came out as croaky as a frog. Thanks. I guess I could have done it that way. That's okay. Have a toffo. They each had one, and they walked along side by side. After a while, they gave each other a quick grin. Let's give them some. They stopped. They took the men out and gave them each some bits of the chocolate. So I wondered when I said toffo if you thought, what's that? The author just told us it's chocolate. That's a reward, said Patrick, for playing dead. Little Bear then naturally demanded to know what it was about, and the boys explained as well as they could. Little Bear was very intrigued. Man think Omri steal Little Bear? Yes. And Boone? Omri nodded. Omri fool to steal Boone, roared Little Bear, stuffing himself with the chocolate, and then he gave Boone a dirty look. Where woman? Little Bear asked. I've got her. When make real? Tonight. Patrick gave him a look of pure longing, but he didn't say anything. They walked along again. They were getting close to Omri's house. Omri was thinking. After a while, he said, Patrick, what about you staying the night? Patrick's face lit up like a light bulb. Could I? And see? Yes. Wow! Thanks. They ran the rest of the way home. And that's the end of that chapter. What a good ending that is. If you will recall, Patrick and Omri really had a really rough day at school between what happened in the cafeteria, what happened in Mr. Johnson's office, what happened in the art room, and oh my goodness, what just happened at Yap's. Mr. Yap was threatening to call the police on Omri. But I want you to think about all the reasons why Omri would have originally not wanted Patrick to spend the night at his house. Patrick did some things that a good friend should never, ever do as far as trust and respecting Omri. But just now, Omri invited Patrick to stay the night at his house, and I wonder if you know why. Ponder that for a moment. And think about what's going to happen tonight at Omri's house. There is a third plastic figure that's very important to Little Bear. Something pretty exciting is going to happen at Omri's house tonight. And I will see you on Monday. Have a good weekend. Enjoy being outside. Read a good book. And I will see you on Monday. Bye, guys.